Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist, composer, and educator Jen Allen. Her latest 2019 CD, Sifting Grace, is a great album. She is a musician who never shies away from honest self-revelation. Her compositional output reads like an intimate diary of life experiences and relationships, offered with subtle and surprising narrative power. Following the release of her debut, Pieces of Myself, she got critical acclaim for it in 2011 and has been at it ever since, as a performer, educator, and so much more. So please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
So, Jen, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
So I've had a great time listening to Sifting Grace, and I want to know from you, I get an idea from reading about you that, you're just kind of putting a mirror up to the way you're living your life and looking into relationships and just how we move as humans. And I just want to know from you, what was your vision for this CD?
Yeah, that's a really great description of it. I think that that's pretty accurate. I guess as I get older as a person and as a musician, I just feel like everything I do is a little bit more intentional. I think the first things that kind of brought me to this place was the passing of my mom about 2 years ago now. And I think it was kind of the time for me to reflect and say, what am I doing and what's most important? And let's kind of get through all the things that are not really worth my time and really start to focus on the things I want in my life. And so, yeah, that was kind of the start, and that helped with getting the album kind of focused in that direction.
So let's go back to the beginning of your life. Where were you born and raised, and kind of how did you get into music?
I grew up in Foxborough, Massachusetts. I started out playing string instruments, first violin and then cello, because those were the instruments you could play before any other instruments, and I was just really eager to play anything, so that's what I did. And I stuck with that through high school, and then about my junior year of high school, my band director asked if I could join the jazz band because he needed a pianist, and the town was pretty small, so he needed somebody, but we had a really great jazz program. Foxborough, Massachusetts has a pretty terrific jazz program. And so I was kind of like, yeah, I want to be a part of that, but had no idea what I was getting into. And I joined, and he gave me just a huge stack of music, and I started listening to it, and I fell in love. And I said, wow, I think this is what I've been looking for all the time in music, but I had no idea. And so my life kind of took a big turn then. I started playing piano, and I just jumped right in. And I changed course at that point because I was going to actually focus on cello and go to music school for that. I think music was always in the cards for me, but having that moment in time when he, asked me to do that, and then I had the experience in the jazz band, I think it just changed everything for me. I know it changed everything for me.
So what about musicians' albums you were listening to when you got into jazz? What influenced you the most?
Like, I can think back, there were a couple of albums that really struck me, and I think they're my favorites to this day because of that. I think that happens a lot with young musicians, the things you fall in love with at first. But I think it was Kirkland's album that really, one of my piano teachers was like, oh, you should listen to this. And I just heard all the creativity and the different kinds of textures that really spoke to me. So that album was really influential. And then also at that time I was listening to a lot of Bill Evans, and that also just the sensitivity of his music really struck me. And honestly, growing up playing a more classical instrument and having to perform music in a very specific way, just overall being introduced to something that had the improvisation element and the, kind of put your own stamp on it really just spoke to me as a young musician, and still does today. That whole, part of my creativity as a human, that was the stuff that inspired me.
So your first album in 2011, Pieces of Myself, got critical acclaim, and it was your debut. Did that really get you kind of moving in the right direction, kind of vault things up for you?
That album was funny because I was just like, I need to put out an album. I need to do this. I have been writing music for a really long time, and I just hadn't had the time to put it out because I'm a mom. I had like young kids at the time when I put that album out, and time was just not on my side, I felt. So I put out that album, and that was kind of a little snapshot of that point of my life. Like I felt like I was all over the place. I had my children, I had my career, I had, my personal life, I had all these different parts of me, but I just felt like I had, pieces of me that I'm just kind of putting together. And then I just did not get another album out for a while because like life was just so busy with other stuff, and I've been a little sad about that, but I've done some other things, other people's albums, so that's been good. But my direction is doing more of this kind of stuff as I get going. So
what good anecdotes, stories, advice do you have about your time with Jackie McLean?
I have a lot of great stories. I mean, Jackie was a great storyteller himself, and I think one of the biggest things I take from that time with him was that it's a lineage. This music, it comes from some place that has a history, and the history kind of tells what the music is doing. There was never a time when we were learning from him that he didn't tell us why this, happened or who influenced him. Like if he talked about Charlie Parker, or if he was talking about, Bud Powell, or whoever he was talking about, who he spent time with, it was passing on that lineage, passing on the importance of, the perseverance of those musicians and the story that they told through that music.
What do you like best about being a musician?
Gosh, I like best about it, I guess there's a couple of things. I mean, I love the time I spend creatively writing. I find that to be something that I could do all day, every day. I could sit down and just compose music and improvise. That's just kind of like me connecting to the spiritual world. And so it feels very at home and very right. I also love the community. Being a musician, I love being around other people and sharing that kind of spiritual time with other people. And it's flexible. I can't imagine actually ever having a 9-to-5 job where I'd have to do the same thing every day. It doesn't fit my personality. So there's a lot of things. Yeah.
So what was one of the first live jazz shows you saw that really inspired you?
That's a good question. There's a couple. I saw Joshua Redman in Boston when I was probably about 18 years old. And that it was a live concert outside, and I was kind of like, oh, he's really young. Oh, people can do this when they're young. And I think that inspired me. Like the music was really terrific. And then also just kind of catching a vision that like, oh, this is something I might be able to do with my life. And that was inspirational in that way. As for, well, let's leave that there. Let's leave it there. Because there's a lot of other concerts, but I think that one is a pretty poignant one for me.
Why do you love jazz?
I think some of the things I've already said in terms of creativity, I like that part of it. I like that I can really put myself into it. Like it's flexible enough that I can, I can be seen in that, in like who I am. But I also love the history of it. As I kind of said before, I feel like the history informs what I do today or what other musicians are doing today. And so, I teach a jazz history course, and the more and more I learn about jazz history, the more I like the music. So I think it's two parts in that way.
So everything's going to come down to this. My final question. Everyone has a perception or their version of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your students. But you know yourself best. Who do you think you are?
I think I'm just trying to be me, I'm trying to still find that out, and I feel that the music helps me do that. I daily trying to be a person that has integrity and is truthful with my art. And that can change from moment to moment, or there are some overall arching themes. But I think overall, I'm just being me, and that takes time to get to know.
I like that. That's a great answer. Hey, Jen, thank you for the music. I've really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time and stories, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jen for her time and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.